You're listening to the Small Business Talk podcast with Cathy Smith, episode 27.
Small Business Talk is a podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want a better way to run their businesses without spending years doing it the hard way. Small Business Talk is hosted by Cathy Smith, who has run the same marketing agency for more than 17 years and helped hundreds of business owners achieve their marketing goals.
Hey, I'm so glad you could join us. Welcome to the Small Business Talk podcast. Today, my guest is Esther Anderson, a fellow digital agency owner who also runs a virtual staff agency. And today, we're going to talk about it's time to scale up, how to engage virtual staff. Welcome, Esther.
Hey, Cathy, how you going?
Very well. Now, how did you get into running a virtual staff agency?
Well, it all started way back when I needed to employ someone to assist me. When I lived in a regional town and I first got into working online, I was the unicorn up there because nobody else knew what I was doing. So I just tell people I build websites. They didn't understand digital marketing. And it got to the stage, because I had a day job and this was a hobby of mine, and we're going back about 15 years, I just was trying to push everything together. And so when I needed somebody, I started advertising on a well-known virtual staff site. And I got lucky. The first two people I first employed, one was a website maintenance person and one was a marketing lady, and they both still work for me now. I started off by there, and then over time when I started expanding, and then I gave up my day job, then I grew into my own agency. We set up processes. My first couple of staff were a mixture. Some were from India, some from the Philippines, one from China. Over time, I learned how to streamline the process. I mean, my first ad, you put it up there and you get 150 people apply, and you're overwhelmed and you think, oh, wow, everybody wants to work for me. When you realise how ambiguous your own job ad is, I'm surprised anybody applied because it was so vague. You know, I need an outstanding web designer or a maintenance guy for my WordPress websites. And of course, I just got anyone and everyone.
So can you tell us, Esther, what is a virtual staff member? Does that mean that they're in another country or they're just in another location? Or what do you define a virtual staff member as?
Virtual is outsourced, offshore. It's pretty much the same thing. It just means they don't work from your office. Offshore is obviously away from the parent company. So if they're based in the Philippines, they'd be offshore to Australia and America. There are quite a few people now that are working remotely within Australia from their own office. They're also considered virtual staff.
Okay. With your virtual staff agency, where are your people located and why are they located in that particular area?
Just jumping back to how I set up the virtual staff agency, because that is not what I wanted. I employed, and I ended up employing 13 people to manage my hobby. They're all full-time and they worked only for me. We developed our own processes. And I thought everybody who had virtual staff had their own processes. I, sort of maximised output, minimised costs. And then people in my sphere asked me how to do it. Then they sort of wished they had staff that were as qualified as mine. So then when we started working with clients and they needed administration staff or bookkeepers or the assistant, my team started jumping in. And hence our agency was born. But the difference between virtual staff is like you have a VA, which is a virtual assistant. Just like in any company, you have an EA, PA, personal assistant, executive assistant, a bookkeeper, and then they have all their roles and responsibilities. What we devise is a project manager equivalent that you as a client would deal with, They in turn go back within our team. So then they would give somebody some graphic work and someone some bookkeeping work, updating your social media posts, booking your travel details. Collect it all, turn around and hand it over to you. And so instead of you trying to hire 1/10 of a social manager and 1/10 of a bookkeeper, we just wrap it up into the one person that's been trained and employed by us. My people, I started employing them from the Philippines originally. I majored in the Philippines. I did employ from other countries. The Philippines, a couple of things that really attracted me there was because they had a great American influence, they spoke our language a lot easier than, say, for example, India or China or even South Africa. I started developing there, and then I just so happened I went to a conference in the Philippines. I gathered all my staff together and we went on a 2-day workshop, really finalised our processes. Then I go back twice a year, and any new staff, all the old staff, their hands-on training of what our processes are within the company. We do get a lot of people that want virtual staff or they want a virtual assistant, but they don't know what to do with it when they've got it. We find that we end up training the client even more so than what we train the staff for.
Excellent. So what kind of tips would you advise for the client thinking of getting a virtual staff member to be thinking about?
Often people don't realise if they already think about that they need staff, it's already too late because they're overwhelmed, and then they go, well, it'll take me forever to teach them. All they're going to teach them is possibly their own bad tricks and bad habits. So hence why we have our processes, and we onboard the client as well as onboarding the virtual staff. You've got to let go. You can't be a control freak. Don't micromanage. The first month, you're both building trust both ways. So if you think you're nervous about employing someone, don't forget they're twice as nervous at the other end, being employed by someone as far away as Australia or America. Be very concise with what you want them to do. And if you don't know where to start, just pick one thing. What do you hate to do the most? And often it's social posts and content writing that we find. And another chap with him, it says invoicing and bookkeeping. And they were the first things they couldn't care less as long as they could hand the responsibility and the task over to someone else and they could breathe a sigh of relief. That was the one thing. And then once that was taken care of, suddenly it became a lot easier for them to start passing tasks over.
And isn't that so true? We all have our pet hates, and yes, I must admit that bookkeeping is mine as well. And it was the very first thing that I passed off to my local bookkeeper when I started looking at staff before I became an employer. So I certainly know where we're going there. Okay, so we've decided that we need somewhere. We're probably a little bit too late, but we're going to go down that road anyway. So what do you think we should do after we've decided what kind of task it might be? So it might be our bookkeeping or our social media. What do we do now?
When you go to employ someone overseas, don't think you're going to get one person that can do your bookkeeping and update your website and maybe some graphic design, etc. You've got to be a realist. If you are going to employ someone that you want multi-skilled, you need to pay more for it. So just manage your expectations. So we're going to say you just want a virtual assistant that can assist you and you don't mind a bit of training along the way. You need to be very specific when you write your advert. Whichever website you go to, then there's quite a few around there to employ staff. Be very specific. For example, when I was with a marketing person, one of the criteria was sell yourself and your services to me as you would sell your product for a client. Another one was I want a content writer that is 100%. Well, show me how you can explain yourself in Australia. Obviously, when I'm going through the resumes and the applications, for the content writer, if their resume has any typos, that gets swiped straight away. Not interested. If you want someone that shows accounting skills, you look at the work that they've done. Any typos, get rid of it. A lot of applicants, and they do blanket apply, and they'll say, Skype me and I'll tell you why I'm so good. Get rid of all those. Be specific in your ad, and those that match your criteria, they're the ones you actually open up and look at the resume and go from there and start setting up interviews.
So would you set them a small task of something similar to what you would like them to do after you've maybe shortlisted some of them out of their interviews?
I don't, because I have a longer process to onboard them. Bear in mind that if you are going to give them a task, you need to pay them.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. When I've shortlisted, now I'm very lucky because I have staff in the Philippines. They do the first two lots of shortlisting before someone even comes to me. Set very specific criteria. Set a time for a meeting. When you have a meeting, let them know in advance that you are going to have the camera on and you need their full attention. And this is because, and I know so many Australians and Americans who don't want to talk to their staff with the camera on. Well, deal with it. Go put your makeup on, go and put a clean shirt on, because you're about to build a relationship that someone's going to help you in your business. If you're just talking to a voice, they're not going to be able to connect with you. They need to see you. You do the same. Set that so they know that, you're going to be turning the camera on, whether it be Skype or Zoom or, however. Maybe you're going to send them three questions before the interview. Just say, we're going to talk about this. Don't cold call them. Don't shock them. They may do it in Western civilization, but you don't do it with these other countries because they're already very nervous that, to meet the big kahuna. You might be an agency of one person. Well, they've Googled your agency and they see this huge website and that you're doing all these projects and they think you employ 20 or 30 people. We don't understand the importance that we hold there. You have the camera on, you go through, you chat about it, you forewarn them what you're going to talk about. Then you might say, okay, this is great. You are definitely on the short list. I'm interviewing one or two other people. I'm going to send a task through. It might be a set project. It might be a pay by the hour. Set expectations, manage them. Then you can make up your mind after that.
So I think it's basically treating them as a person, because of course they are people, and treating it very similar to if you were going to be interviewing somebody face-to-face here in Australia. Treat them the way you would. You obviously wouldn't rock up to that kind of interview without your hair done and in your pyjamas, and you would expect to see them face-to-face. You wouldn't expect to have them sitting behind a wall where you couldn't see them. So if you sort of treat that with that sort of mindset as if you would, they're just in a different location.
That's right.
So, Esther, what's the process of actually onboarding or employing a virtual staff member?
One of the questions that they get asked at the interview, because they're all virtual, they're not actually working in a call centre or major office environment, they're working from home. So we ask them, what is their environment like? Where are they actually going to work from? Is it a desk in the bedroom? Is it the kitchen table? Do they have children? And all these things show an understanding by us of their lifestyle, but also gets them understanding the level of the standards that we require. If they say they have a desk and the husband's going to look after the children, or maybe they're going to work a night shift equivalent, so they work around it. The question is the location. Then we go, what's your internet connection speed? And what's your backup? If they've got like the equivalent of a landline and then a mobile device, then there's always the third one, which is where is your closest Starbucks or co-working location? Because if they're working on an important project, they need to leave the home and go and work from somewhere to fulfill their work, because they can't consistently let you down. Then we also ask about devices. How old's your computer? Do you have a desktop or a laptop? How old's the laptop? We actually don't employ anyone with a laptop older than 2 years. And it sounds corny, but we've got standard. People are relying on us. It's like within our agency, and you've employed someone, you know they're going to be there 3 days a week. And if they don't turn up, well, going through our agency, which is why we're different, is, for example, Cathy, you've got an assistant and you get on the call and suddenly instead of Carmela, it's Myrene. And Myrene says, Carmela got called away for whatever reason. I've reviewed all your videos because we keep everything recorded and training and so on. And so she'll step into that. So you are not disappointed, you're not let down. You do have someone that infills all the time. But of course, if you've employed an assistant purely for yourself, they might have a brownout, their internet drops out, power outages, typhoons, earthquakes even, all these different things. But it's okay, we'll try and minimise the distraction as much. You have to ensure that, or set expectations on what time they can be at work, when they can be at work, what is the backup to the backup. One time we were trying to, I have learned from this, never to get a website go live on a Friday when it's Friday evening and so on. So what happened was the poor chap, it was a coded site, so nightmare. And he was working late. The head of our development department and myself, we were all three, different places, all stayed up late communicating with each other because Vic and I couldn't go to bed until Paul Christian had finished his job. We just felt that way. So we're working away. We couldn't get hold of Christian. He told us after what had happened. He was working away, lost the power to his house, lost the internet to his house. So then he picked up his laptop. He ran two floors down, banged on the neighbour's door, it was midnight, went in there, used their internet, something happened there, and as he got up to go elsewhere, he dropped the laptop and broke it. He grabbed his mate's laptop, ran to the nearest Starbucks at 2 a.m. in the morning to finish this job because, of course, he could log in anywhere. And to me, that's dedication. This is why you need backup to the backup to the backup.
Excellent. Another thing I guess people are worried about is when will they work? Will they work at night time? We hear of horror stories about people working at night time, or will they work during the day, or what kind of hours do they work?
Well, here in Perth, we're very lucky. We're on the same time zone as the Philippines, and in fact, for over Eastern Australia, it's only a couple of hours out. For them to be online with America, it's actually flipped right round. But when you are in the Philippines and you walk around the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't know, it's something like 20 or 30% of their population work night shift to meet up with the American clock. There's no problems at all with the time zones. They'll do that. One thing I did want to touch on was confidentiality, because everybody is scared that, hey, they're going to take my credit card details and drain my bank account and so on. If you go through the correct processes when you're interviewing them and you won't have that problem because their name is out there, you've had a couple of interviews, you've done background checks. We sign our team up to a contract, set expectations, also a non-disclosure agreement and confidentiality. The paperwork shares how important you hold those topics to them. And so if they have to sign that, and you have to understand, these are just working people that when they go and get a job in a call centre, they're signing their own pay contracts over there. This is how it's the done thing. And if you don't do that, you're actually letting your own side down a little bit. But look, honestly, you do all your proper checks in there, get them to sign the contracts, and you build up relationship and trust over time. You give them bits and pieces more as you grow, and they learn what they need to about your business. There shouldn't be any worries at all. You have your staff meetings monthly. We have staff meetings, and I rent out a co-working location, and the majority of my staff are in Manila. So they all meet up at the one place for the day. We all work on Zoom together for the day. We have a staff meeting. I pay for lunch, and I pay for the hire of the co-working location. If ever you think you're sitting in your own little office and you're lonely, it goes the same for them. So it helps if you can bring your staff together. They all become really good friends and they work together on projects and things like that. Treat them as if, they're all coming to work in your own office with you at the same time. And
I guess that brings us to another thing. How do you actually pay them? Obviously, you can't send them Australian dollars over their normal bank accounts. So how does that work?
We use PayPal. There's different payment options out there. Western Union is a bit on the expensive side. No, you can't transfer from bank account to bank account. The cheapest is PayPal. You should pay them in US dollars. So if they're referring to US dollars and so are you, that's sort of the universal currency. It should be upon the business owner to pay for any fees or taxes associated with PayPal. It shouldn't be them paying those fees to get paid.
So what about things like their income tax? Do they have income tax? Do you need to pay that as a business owner, or how does that work?
No, you don't have to pay any of that. They have to account for it themselves to their own taxation office. I have staff that one set up as their own business, and so I had to provide a letter with my company letterhead saying that, yes, they're working for me. Another one was, yes, they're subcontracting to me. And then they'll have an amount on there that I'll agree with. And it's your discretion, be a bit realistic. If they don't declare everything, good luck to them. It's a tough life over there. So don't, please, get off your high horse, sign the paperwork if there is anything like that. Or if you want to bring them over here and there's visas involved and so on, there's easy ways to do it. But when they go off to get a passport, they'll take the day off to go into town and wait, and it might be 2 or 3 visits. Same with paying bills. They actually have to take time off to go and pay the bills because you don't pay online over there.
So I guess it's just those cultural differences that you need to do a bit of give and take and go from there.
Yeah. It's interesting, in the world of outsourcing, I find that I sort of back up the employees rather than employers, because employers are very set in their ways. I own the company. This is what's expected. You have to have a lot of understanding for the other side of the fence. So when you speak to them, give them respect, eye contact. If you're not sure what to say or you don't want to offend them when you're starting to build your relationship, say so. I say this to staff all the time. Am I allowed to ask about a father that's sick or the job that you left previously? Why did you do so? Was that family always leaving it open, because there's so many different things that can happen there.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that we need to be very conscious of is that we do speak in such slang. So we might say something like, oh, you can have the arvo off, and they're going to be going, what are you talking about? So we do need to make sure that they are understanding us and that we're understanding them as well, because I know that some people have had problems where people have used things like already, and they use it to say that they've just done it, not like they've done it previously. Whereas we would think, if you say, I've already done it, that you've done it 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, an hour ago, 2 days ago. Whereas I know that sometimes the Filipino people will use already as in, I've just done it right now. So I guess it's those cultural things on both sides, your side and their side, that you need to recognise that are different.
Languages, and exactly in that, the colloquialism from Australia. One of the first things when I was giving tasks to my staff, and they said, noted. Oh, okay, said something else, noted. I thought, gee, I must have upset them today. They kept saying, noted. And because we're still very formal, and I went back and I went, did I offend you? And they go, no, why? And I said, you said noted. Here in Australia, if someone says noted, it means, yes, I know, you don't have to tell me twice. And so that was the first thing. So now it's a standing joke within the office. Someone says something and everyone will go, noted, And language, very much. So many times when I'm talking to the staff or we have staff meetings online, I just hear the keys tap, fingers madly going, what is she talking about? Recently we had a client, they had roll-up garage doors, and we were doing a social media campaign for them. And I couldn't understand why my team had so much problem. They don't have roller doors in the Philippines, very rarely. So you have to really make sure that you provide examples of what you're actually going to do.
Absolutely. Seasonal things are another one, because they don't have winter like we have. And if they're dealing with Americans all the time, they're going to think that winter is snow and ice and sleet and all of that. Whereas a lot of places in Australia, we don't actually have snow or ice or sleet. those sort of seasonal things would be the other thing to think about.
Yeah, seasonal things. They don't have Easter eggs. Now, being a Catholic country, and they're the largest Catholic country out of Italy. And also, we have a Christmas party online each year. And we set it up as a Christmas party. We do it as Zoom so everybody can see each other. We all wear fancy hats, and we're all usually in our own little places around the world. We have to sing a Christmas carol. I remember one year we were talking about ice cream for some reason. Everybody had an ice cream container, and it was part of the game we were playing. They had to go and get one. And it was like half of us got it out of the freezer, but only I had ice cream in mine. The others had like frozen food that they were putting in the ice cream container. Others had it in the fridge. One used it as a baby's toy, and and we have so much fun. And we had sparkly hats and things like that. So I mean, they have a lot of public holidays, and so that is something how you manage them according to their holidays or your holidays. Who gets time off? Is it paid time off, and so on. They don't have Easter eggs, so I take lots of photos of the chocolate eggs over here. Would love to see them, and I did take some over when I visited that time of the year.
Excellent. So what about things like their holidays? Do you have to pay something like 13th month? How do you work on their annual leave?
Okay, for those that aren't aware of the 13th month, traditionally in the Philippines they get paid monthly, and in the first week of December you will pay them a month's pay. It's almost like a bonus per se. But it depends how you've set up their contract, and have an employment contract, and it may only be one page, but you'll set out the rates. Is it by hour, paid weekly or monthly? Does it include holidays? With my staff, if they want the holiday off, they have to put in a leave form. The way we work it, if they want the holiday off, they're not going to get paid for that. And if, let's say it's Australia Day and I want the day off, and I want my team to have the day off, I will actually pay them for the day, because it's me shutting down the business, not them asking. Now, that because my team are on hourly or weekly wages, when you're working out for the 13th month and you pay them 40 hours a week, 4 weeks is a month. But you've got to take into consideration holidays. Do they work overtime? And so often the 13th month actually just makes up for a lot of the work that they've done, or holidays that maybe they should have taken off and didn't, in the extras. Definitely always look at the 13th month. If you don't, and you don't subscribe to that fact, we also have what we refer to as bonuses. So we put staff on bonuses for big projects if they come in on time. So I certainly subscribe to the 13th month. You've got to look at how you're going to compensate your staff, whether it be bonuses for a project. When I first employ staff, we agree on a rate. And I'm not saying this is the rate, this is a rate example. So if I had a position and it was $10 an hour, I might say, okay, we're going to put you on a trial for 10 hours or for the first week. We're going to pay you $6 an hour or $8 an hour. And then if that works out, then you go to $10. So they have to prove themselves, but they do get paid for that. What we actually have, in fact, within our company is something like that their trial would be, say, $8 an hour, and then they get employed at the agreed amount, let's say $10, and after 3 months, they come onto us as permanent staff, and they might only get a pay increase of $1 an hour, but it's like a sense of achievement that they've made the grade, and we usually send them a T-shirt in the mail. And so, they get a slight pay increase, and suddenly they really feel part of the team and the family.
So what about annual leave? Do they have a prescribed annual leave like we do in Australia? So if they're a full-time employee, obviously most companies in Australia have 4 weeks. Do they have any sort of annual leave requirements?
Not working for us over here. If they've got they're working for a Filipino company, yes, they have leave under that. And that is something that you can agree with them. For example, you might shut down your business at Christmas time because it's quiet. So you shut down for 2 weeks and you advise your staff that everybody's closed, and then you can pay them for that or not pay them for that. That's your choice, but be aware that you are responsible not only for the person working for you, but their family as well. So you need to understand the dynamics that they come in and they work for you. They basically, they're supporting their whole family, and you in turn are responsible for them.
Yes, and I think that's something that people need to be very mindful of, particularly when their costs are so much lower than ours. But of course, when you're paying a rate that's so much lower, that's their whole entire income. And like you say, it can be for a mother or father. It might be their mother or father. Quite often, I know that they'll be looking after their parents or siblings or grandchildren or that sort of thing. So it does seem to be a very community-minded sort of thing. So that could be the income for 5 or 6 people.
That's right. And you said an interesting thing there, that their cost of living is lower, but it's actually on par with us. If you look at someone in Australia bringing home $1,000 a week and paying $350 a week rent, as opposed to in the Philippines, let's say brings home 100 and pays,
30 or 40.
Yeah, it balances out. There are, like, food, is fairly cheap over there. But if you look at health, and because, of course, I'm not providing a health fund, they have to pay for their own over there. But in hospitals, very expensive. And it's not unknown that, poor old grandpa had a heart attack, and he will be kept in hospital until his bill has been settled. And so the family have got to try and raise the money.
And then racking up the extra cost per day in the meantime.
Medical is a huge cost over there. Same with, like, vets. All my team have got animals, abounding. But over there it might be one vet for 3 million people. And
wow.
So this is the thing, in clinics it might be 2 weeks' wage to take a cat to be desexed. That's why cats aren't desexed over there.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. And we could chat about this for absolute days, I think. We haven't even scratched the surface. But I really should ask you my 5 questions.
Yes.
So let's go with those. So what is the biggest help you've received since starting your business?
Is support from those, when I first started out, above me, that would give me words of wisdom, or take the time to just understand my business for a couple of minutes and just say, here's a different perspective. I'm not the kind to say, no, don't, mind your own business. And I'll go, it's always very interesting to get someone else's perspective and advice. I've always been open to that.
Definitely, because we get so close to our own businesses that sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees.
Oh, definitely.
What do you wish you had known when you started out?
Well, if I'd known what I know now, I wouldn't have started. And while it sounds funny, but this business that we're in, it's ever-changing. It's not as if I went out and became a chef or a tradesman or, whatever your profession is. In here, it's like each week you wake up and you've got to get your head around what are the changes. And so it's ad infinitum. You can never, it's always moving goals. You can never reach your target.
You can't.
So that's the only thing. If I'd known how big this was getting, and the more that I would know, the more I would realise I just don't know, maybe I would have become a florist.
Sometimes a checkout chick definitely does sound appealing, although that's politically incorrect these days. A cashier's assistant is probably the word we need to be using. What is the best advice you've been given by a mentor?
That's a tricky one, because I've been given good advice, and whether I've actually taken it or not, and then it comes under perspective. I was very much a lone ranger doing my thing. A lot of the time I actually didn't get advice, or it didn't apply to my circumstances. So there's nothing that sort of sticks out.
Okay. What's the one thing you have to do every day, your non-negotiable?
Say thank you.
Beautiful.
And that is to my team. That is appreciate them. For example, if I have a bad day, or maybe they've done something wrong, and it's not that they've done the thing wrong, I probably didn't take the time to explain myself. So before I can lose the plot, so to speak, and you have to be aware of how you sound across the wires without seeing people, face to face, I will shut down my computer and not talk to the team for a couple of hours till I settle down. And I realised that it wasn't such a big drama. That thank you, that appreciate the people who you have, because they've got your back. I will trust my team with absolutely anything and everything. They've been with me quite some time, and I know whatever they do, there's always a reason behind it.
Absolutely. Okay, and our very last one, what is your favourite business book and why?
It would have to be The 7-Day Startup by Dan Norris. It teaches you to focus in a short time and just do it. I have started quite a few businesses very quickly. I find that if I take the time and I plan something, you procrastinate. It takes way, way too long. So like his 7-Day Startup, give yourself 7 days to build a business. And if you can give yourself a rough working model in 7 days, make it happen. Do it.
And I think that's what we do sometimes, isn't it? We're waiting for perfection to get all the blocks in the right order, make everything happen. And of course, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years down the track, it's still sitting there waiting to be done. So press the button and go make imperfect action.
That's it.
Excellent. I've only just scratched the surface of hiring virtual staff. So if this all sounded a bit too hard for somebody, as we did mention, you do have a virtual staff agency. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your agency, what it's called, how they get there?
Okay, so it's a tricky name, but not really. It's SMOFONSE, which is abbreviated Smart Office Online Services, SMOFONSE.com. You can go there and have a look at services that we provide, anything and everything. But even if you have questions about employing staff or you're not sure where to start, send me an email via the site. We are so happy to help because we want to promote cross-cultural learnings. It's not so scary. Once you start and you refine your own process, you'll never do better than employing a virtual assistant from anywhere in the world. Ask me any questions, happy to help.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Esther. I think we might have to do a sequel of this somewhere down the track. Really appreciate your knowledge and your help, and we'll add those links to the show notes.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and thanks to all your listeners.
Don't forget to subscribe to Small Business Talk podcast and head on over to smallbusinesstalk.com.au/downloads for all the show notes and links to this episode. Remember, to be great, you must start. Pick one tip from today's episode, take action and implement it. Let's meet again next week at the same time and place. Until then, take action. And SBT community, enjoy your journey.